In last week's episode, we spent a good amount of time cleaning and restoring the shell of this DMG Game Boy console. Now we need to address the antiquated and damaged LCD. Up until recently, backlighting a DMG involved modifying the original screen with, at the time, appeared to be good results. However, in 2020, we now have IPS kits, which make crisp and bright backlit displays possible for our retro consoles. In this episode, we will be installing the RIPS version 2 IPS kit into this original Game Boy console. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Tito and welcome to another episode of Retro Renew. In today's modded episode, we're going to finish refurbishing this Game Boy DMG. If you remember from last week, we actually took this entire unit apart and completely cleaned it very thoroughly, and we also attempted retro brighting this using the sous vide method. If you do want to see that video, you can click at the card at the top of your screen or in the link in the description below. So in order to finish this refurb, we're actually going to be modding this console with the version 2 RIPS IPS kit. So in version 1 of this kit, there was actually an issue where the dark gray and the light gray colors were actually reversed. So in areas of the image where it would be light gray, it would actually show dark gray and vice versa. And this version 2 fixes that issue. So before we move forward, I'm going to show you the contents of the kit. So this is what the kit essentially looks like when you get it in the mail, and it comes with some pretty interesting components. Alright, so here we have some anti-static bag, double-sided tape, 3D printed bracket, the PCB, and a ribbon cable. Alright, so these are the components of the kit. I'm going to go over each one just real quick. So the first thing I'm going to go over is this replacement front PCB. Now this is actually a complete replacement for the PCB, and here you can see it's got the button contacts, and then here we have a very interesting part, which is the control wheel, which has multiple functions, which we will go over once I finish installing the kit. And you will notice that it doesn't come with a speaker, so you're going to actually have to take your old speaker or buy a new one and actually solder that in, and that is the only soldering you will need to do for this kit. So that is the replacement from PCB. The next item I'm going to go over is the IPS display. So this is the IPS display, but yeah, so this does provide a pixel perfect image. And again, this is a full size kit, so we aren't really sacrificing any screen real estate, which is really great. So this is going to be very nice. The next item is a display controller board, and what this essentially does is this converts the signal provided by the Game Boy motherboard into something that is displayable on the new IPS display. So this is sort of kind of where all the magic happens. And yeah, so that is that. Now the next thing that's included is actually something we won't be using, but the kit comes with double-sided tape, and we won't be using this because we bought the Console 5 variation of this kit. This kit again is sold on multiple websites. I believe Retro Modding, you can buy this kit, but I chose the Console 5 variation, and for a very particular reason, and this is a reason why I really like Console 5. So what Console 5 did in their kits, they actually included this last item I'm going to go over, and that is this 3D printed bracket. Now this 3D printed bracket actually centers and holds the LCD in place perfectly without the need to use any adhesive or double-sided tape. All right, so that's the kit in a nutshell. In order to do this mod, you're going to need the following items. Please feel free to pause the screen so you can take note of them. All right, once you gathered all your tools and parts, we can start the modification. All right, as usual, grab your Game Boy console, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to disassemble it. Again, in my particular unit, this is an early revision of the Game Boy, so I'll be removing all the screws using a Phillips head. However, yours might need a tri-wing bit. So with the clamshell separated, go ahead and remove the ribbon cable. Once we have separated the rear and the front, go ahead and set the rear to the side. Now we're going to remove the 10 Phillips screws holding the front PCB to the front shell housing. Once removed, we can take out the front PCB, and then we're going to draw our attention to the speaker. Go ahead and desolder the speaker from the front PCB. Take the speaker wires and place them to the speaker through holes on the new PCB, and then solder it in place. Alright, let's move our attention to the front shell housing. We're going to make a few modifications in order for the IPS kit to install. We're going to start by removing this post, and then this post, and lastly this fin here so that the IPS LCD panel can fit flush to the top of the shell. Go ahead and clean up your work using a craft knife and finish it off with a file. We want to make sure that this portion of the front shell housing is flush so that it does not damage the IPS panel. Moving to the rear shell housing, we're going to have to trim this area of the shell. Get started using your flush cutters to do most of the job. And then what I did is I removed the rear PCB so that it gave me enough room to get a file into that area and really make it nice and smooth. This is the result we're aiming for. Alright, once we're done, go ahead and reinstall the rear PCB. And now we're going to trim some of the through-hole pins so that it does not interfere with the control wheel. Alright, go ahead and install the LCD panel into the IPS controller board. Once that's done, take a piece of double-sided tape and adhere it to the rear of the panel. Now we're going to place the IPS screen into the 3D printed bracket. There are 4 tabs holding it in place. Make sure it's properly clipped in. And now we're going to place the entire LCD assembly into the front shell housing as shown. Alright, once that's done, go ahead and reinstall your buttons and your membranes. And then install the front PCB into the front shell housing. To reinstall the PCB into the front shell housing, you will only be using 6 of the 10 Phillips screws. Alright, give the buttons a quick test. And then we're going to install the ribbon cable into the PCB connector. Alright, now we're going to connect the rear and front PCBs using the provided ribbon cable. This is a little bit challenging to install, but just take your time and you'll eventually get it. Alright, marry the 2 halves up and secure it using 2 screws. Install some batteries, and we're going to give it a quick test. Alright, the LCD seems to be working. However, I'm having trouble maneuvering the control wheel. It seems to be binding on the shell. So I had to disassemble the unit again and file away some of the plastic for the control wheel opening so that it would not bind on the plastic. This may not be the case for you, but for me, I did need to do this step. Alright, the control wheel seems to be moving freely now. Go ahead and reassemble the unit. Fasten the 6 screws holding the shell together. Remove the protective film so we can install the screen lens. Before we do that though, I'm going to use some Novus scratch remover in order to polish some of the scratches that are on the original screen lens. As you can see, my results were okay, but I'm still going to use this because I actually don't have a replacement screen lens. Now we're going to take some 3M double-sided tape and apply it to the rear of the screen lens and prepare it for install on the DMG console. Alright, we're going to give it a quick test. And there you have it. Alright, so we completed the mod. I'm actually very happy with the results. And so I do want to talk about it a little bit, and do be sure to stay all the way to the end of the video, because at the end I will be showing comparison shots between this IPS mod compared to a biverted backlit Game Boy DMG, as well as a backlit Game Boy Pocket, as well as a Game Boy Color that's been backlit using the McWill kit. So I'm going to start by talking about the pros and then the cons of this modification, in my opinion. So one of the things I really like, in particular from the kit offered by Console 5, is the fact that it comes with a custom 3D printed bracket. This bracket makes the install a complete breeze without the reliance of an adhesive or tape, making this a fully serviceable mod. The other thing I love about this kit is all of the options to backlight it. You do have a couple different palettes to select through, as well as different colors of backlight. So you have a myriad of options and how you want to backlight it. You can kind of style it and make it match maybe a certain theme for Game Boy. If you have a different shell, maybe buttons, you can sort of accent it with a different backlight, which I think is really, really fantastic, and it really makes this backlight very flexible. So after talking about that, this sort of leads me to the next thing that I really like about it, and it's the control wheel. This control wheel, which functions to both brighten and dim the screen, as well as change the color palettes, has been integrated really nicely into this kit, and it makes it look almost factory. The next thing that's really great about this kit is that the screen real estate is pretty much the same as the original one. With this kit, you do not lose any screen real estate, which is awesome, and I really do like that. So that's probably one of my favorite things about this mod. The next thing I really, really like is the ease of install. This is probably one of the easier backlit kits I installed. It didn't really require any soldering. The only thing you did need to solder, of course, was the speaker. And if you order this through Retro Modding, I do believe they sell a version of the kit with the speaker already soldered in place. So in that scenario, it's very much a drop-in solution. So the other thing that's fantastic, obviously, is the fact that this is an IPS panel, so you have a very good refresh rate, especially when you compare it to the original DMG screen. That screen ghosted like crazy, and now you don't have that issue at all. You have a very clear image, and I just can't imagine having this as a kid, being able to play this in the dark. It's just, and with the screen quality, it's just really, really fantastic. And really the last pro that I'd like to talk about is the price. So I actually paid about $64 for this on Console 5, and which is very competitive with a lot of the other suppliers of this kit. However, this comes with the 3D printed bracket, which a lot of the other ones don't. So again, that's kind of the edge, I think, to Console 5. And again, kudos to them for including that with the kit and not really raising the price. So now let's talk about the cons. And really, there's only one con that I could find with this kit. After completing the install, there is certainly an issue with the button response. When I first installed this, my D-pad actually wasn't working unless I pressed very, very hard, and I wasn't comfortable doing that because I didn't want to crack the PCB or anything like that. So I kind of researched this online to see if other people were having this issue. So I did find some results. There was actually a pretty good Reddit post about this with quite a few responses, and what that person found was that actually the support post for the D-pad on the back of the battery compartment was causing additional pressure on the PCB, which somehow caused those button contacts to not be very responsive. So what he said was that he actually removed an entire support post for the D-pad, and that resolved the issue. So I went ahead, I did that as well, and it did fix the issue. But if you are in the market for getting an IPS kit for the DMG, I would recommend waiting for that version 3 to come out, because it is kind of frustrating to do the install, have this great screen, and not be able to really play your games 100%. So other than that, I mean, I think this is a fantastic kit. So now what I want to do is I want to kind of run a few comparison shots of different consoles that can play original Game Boy games. I'm going to show you a biverted backlit DMG along with a backlit Game Boy Pocket, and of course a backlit Game Boy Color playing an original Game Boy game, and just so you can kind of get a sense for yourself about the quality of this LCD. So there you have it. This is the Game Boy DMG RIPS IPS version 2 kit. So I do hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I release videos every Thursday, and as always, we'll see you next time.